Hey everybody, welcome back to this episode of Late Bloomers. I'm your host Ria Ajane, and I hope that you guys had a great year to start off. It is now January and it's crazy. I'd also like to say thank you to whoever left a comment on my podcast on Apple. I gotta read it. Hold on. This is probably taking a little. Okay, here we go. Yes, to the person called Happyfoot who left a comment stating Ria's personality is unmatched. Love laughing, crying, and learning with her. Thank you, Happyfoot. I hope that you are listening and you enjoy more episodes. And if you are a listener, maybe you've been listening to me from the start or just you just started. Thank you again. Um, I also received a notification from Buzzsprout stating that I had over 500 downloads. What the? So thank you so much for supporting, for listening. Please feel free to leave a comment or send me a text. You can do that through the description box. And yeah, I'm excited to see everyone's comments or just things that you have to say. Even if you have comments on previous episodes that you want to share with the audience, with the claws, just let me know. So for today's episode, the episode, it's in the title, we will be discussing emotional abuse, and I have Nia Lynn with me. Hey girl, hey.
Hello, Ria. How was life? How you doing?
Well, life is lifing, and I think I told you I just came from physical therapy, so that's been very successful.
Yes. Shout out to health.
Shout out to health. And if you got insurance, use that card.
Period.
Period. So I guess we should just start off with what is emotional abuse. Let's just jump right in. That's my style. And you have the current definition of emotional abuse, right, Liam?
I do. I do. So, emotional abuse, or also referred to as psychological abuse, includes insults, threats, isolation, extreme jealousy, and controlling behaviors.
Thank you for defining that for us. I also want to go through the signs of emotional abuse. So, Nia, again, feel free to jump in and stuff like that. But I have a list here in my handy dandy notebook that I wrote that we'll be talking through. I'll list off the first three that came to mind, which is gaslighting, lying, or lying by omission, meaning someone's leaving out important details on purpose to kind of twist the truth or twist the situation, not give you the full details so that you can make a well-informed decision on things, on certain topics. And are funny to the person that's making the joke, but they're not funny to you. If you feel like somebody's punching down constantly, or if you feel like they're trying to say something sly or slick underneath their breath, but they're masking it around as a joke, that is what we're referencing.
For sure. And I know gaslighting is like a pretty well known term now. It is one of the ones that I do want to make sure to define
Yes.
exactly, because some people use it incorrectly, but it's basically manipulating your partner into questioning their own sanity. So people always say there's his side, her side, and the truth, right? So
Mhm.
if, the other person just maybe doesn't remember something you said or something that happened, that's different. That's not gaslighting. Gaslighting would be like both parties are fully aware that, something went on, but the, emotionally abusive partner in this case is, telling them that that didn't happen or that's not true, you're crazy, things of that nature. Rhea already touched on some of these as well, but like name calling, belittling, humiliation, yelling and screaming, trying to control what your partner does, what they wear, and where they go. This is a huge one that comes up, I would say, a lot in emotionally abusive situations is the person threatening to commit suicide if the partner leaves.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, destroying something of value to their partner, threatening to kill their partner, their loved ones, or their pets, isolation from friends and family, and also kind of like shifting the blame, like blaming their partner for the abusive behavior.
I like the fact that you brought up isolation too, because there's a typical I'm isolating you physically from your family and friends. But then the other day I was thinking there's another form of isolation where it's like you're still around your family or friends, but you're not exactly telling them what's going on with you. Like you're not honest. Or you yourself, you're still trying to figure it out. So like you keep everything to yourself. Or maybe if you're in a situation like me, like you think that you're respecting the other person's like business or whatever like that. I feel like that is also another form of isolation to the person that's going through something like this. So keep that in mind as well. It's not just like physical space of isolation, isolation of like, I have to keep these thoughts and this problem to myself and I have no one to share it with. So
Great.
I'm just alone in this.
Yeah. And that's the dangerous part of this type of abuse because if something physical starts to happen, then now the person is in danger because they feel like they have no one to turn to. And which is something I was going to mention earlier. Usually with the more physical types of abuse, emotional abuse is already present before the physical even shows up. And a lot of times it's a sign, it's a warning sign that people are not as aware of because, we're just coming to understand, like, I guess I don't know, the science or the intellectualization, I guess, of abusive behavior. That's not something that's commonly known, like, by most people, unless, you're choosing to study it or unless maybe you've been through it or you're trying to break out of that situation. But yeah, a lot of times that's what starts first. And then it escalates. And it's very dangerous for that person in that situation, especially if they're physically in danger because then, they feel like they don't have anybody to turn to.
Yep, I definitely, when I was going through my situation, I definitely felt like that was going to happen had I not come to, like, my friends and family about it.
That's good.
Another thing I was thinking about too is a lot of people don't take emotional abuse as serious because it's not like you have marks all over your body. It's something that you physically can't see. Right, but the person is going through emotional turmoil on the inside, and it could really affect your self-trust, your self-esteem. It can affect how you move in relationships going forward. Maybe you feel like you won't be believed, or maybe you feel like, "Oh, this doesn't count because it's not as extreme as what I saw on TV or as extreme as this person's situation." But the bottom line is like we shouldn't compare our situations. Everything, of
Right.
course, has a spectrum.
Right.
And just know that nobody deserves this type of treatment.
Exactly.
Another example is people who build you up to tear you down.
Hmm.
You feel like you are constantly getting critiqued on things that you're doing wrong. If you feel like you are walking on eggshells talking to this person, if this person brings up insecurities that you've shared with them in the past to in an effort to break you down and make you feel like you deserve this treatment, that's a sign about isolation. Oh, I want to go back to the jokes.
Hmm.
The jokes that aren't really jokes, they're like insults.
Humiliation.
Humiliation. I think some people, when they hear jokes, they think of, like, someone who's, like, loud and laughing and, like, just kinda goofy, I guess, but
Mm.
sometimes somebody can say a joke and it could be real slick, like, it could be in, like, a monotone type of register in their voice. It's, like, real slick, you gotta catch it, but, like, when it happens yeah, it's insidious. It's like when you but and then when you really think about it, you're like, "Wait a minute, that wasn't funny," or "That's I don't think
Right.
that's not a joke to me." Like, you're the only one laughing. I'm not laughing at this. So,
I think it's important to listen to that voice too, because I feel like we know when somebody has said something hurtful to us. But if we have been in the habit of like trying to explain away our own feelings in order to, I don't know, maintain like peace or what have you, then I mean, because I know I'm personally guilty of that. Just like, oh, well, maybe they didn't mean it that way, or maybe I'm being too sensitive or something like that. But I think we always know like how somebody's words impact us and how it makes us feel, and we should listen to that.
I'm glad you brought that up and expounded on it because, I have an issue with delayed processing.
You
Um,
actually.
there's been times where stuff has been said and I'll have a reaction in the moment, right? But then when you time goes by, maybe you're not together with that person anymore, or again, you're just like separated for whatever reason, and you like think about, oh, I know why I was actually offended because of X, Y, and Z. And then like the delayed processing that gets you in trouble with that person when you try to bring up the issue again because then they'll be like, "Oh, we've already discussed this. Why are we going through this again?" type thing. But it's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's part of the ADHD or just I don't know, maybe how you were saying earlier we're taught to like not acknowledge our feelings at first.
Mhm.
We're
Especially as
always taught
women.
yeah, especially as women, it's like, "Oh, give this person benefit of the doubt." That has never worked. I feel like that's propaganda I'm not falling for. 2026 and beyond, like, no, I won't give that person the benefit of the doubt. Because like, at this point, we're all adults and, like, people know what they're doing.
Exactly, exactly. And I wanted to jump back to what you were saying about by the time you bring it to the person, like to try to address the issue, you're saying like, "Oh, we already discussed this." The one that I run into the most is, "Oh, well, that's not what I said.
Oh god.
I never said that," or "I don't remember." I think people don't realize too that just because, and maybe this doesn't apply to an abusive partner, but just because your intent wasn't there to hurt the person doesn't mean that that wasn't the impact. And I
Mhm.
stole that from another one of my Libra friends because it's true. So, like, someone who isn't an abusive partner, someone who, is in a healthy relationship or actually does care about how they make the other person feel, the first thing should be, okay, well, they're telling me this is how I made them feel.
Yeah.
Obviously, that wasn't my intention, but I still need to hold space for how they're feeling. I still said something that triggered something, even if I didn't mean it. And it's not easy to do by any means, but personally, I don't like feeling like my feelings are being invalidated. So I really do try not to do that to other people.
It requires emotional intelligence.
Yes. And these people ain't got it out here.
Yeah, they're lacking. Another symptom or sign is, you start to self-monitor what you say out of a place of anxiety. Another example is not respecting your boundaries or your bodily autonomy. So I have, like, a real life example that I wanted to share, which was when I was in my situation, the person said that I wasn't obedient and in that conversation, I had mentioned, "You're not" first of all, that was but full stop there. That's wild. That's a wild thing to say.
Diabolical.
Second, very wild. Second, um, you know, I had told this person, you don't listen to me or you're not obedient to me when I tell you to stop slapping my ass hard. And the reason why I bring this up is because like it was done so much to the point where it made me feel like kind of like disgusting about myself a little bit, a lot of it. Yeah, it just didn't make me it made me feel like a piece of meat. I don't yeah, it just didn't feel good all the time and it was painful at times. And so this person's response to me was me slapping your ass hard question mark. Sure, make it a conversation, not a suggestion. Put more clothes on, distance yourself. Don't reward that behavior. Hopefully you have more serious topics slash examples. So the reason why I want to share that is because it can get really dicey in conversations with people when it gets to a point. And if anyone talks to you this way, not just talking like romantic partners, I'm talking like friends, family, your coworkers, people who you were just in community with. Please know that that's completely inappropriate and out of pocket.
1000%. And I'm really sorry that that happened.
Literally sigh.
I think that people who are like abusive partners bank on the fact that, their partner's not going to stand up for themselves and they use like fear, to try and control their partner. So, I know that you're no longer in this situation anymore. That person did not succeed.
God, thank God. Yeah, after that conversation, I mean, there are so many things that been said at that point, but that's one of the things that kind of stays with me, sticks with me. And if anybody's been through this situation or currently going through it, or you have a friend that's going through this, they'll probably say the same thing. Like, this person's probably said worse. they probably said some slick shit before, but there's a couple of things that stick with you, and that's one of the things that definitely, like, sticks with me that, someone that you, cared for would speak to you that way, talk to you that way, you know what I mean? Like, "Oh, I thought you were gonna protect me in a way." Or I guess it's like a false sense of protection, I guess, but regardless, it's like I thought that I didn't think this way of you, but now I do. And yeah, it took a lot of therapy, it took a lot of journaling, it took a lot of affirmations and EF what is it called? EFT tapping to really work through that and process it. Because
It's a
sometimes
betrayal.
yeah, it's a betrayal for sure. And I think a lot of times people who go through this, they're like, oh, this person wasn't bad all the time. They were nice to me sometimes. And one thing I'm learning in my book, not my book, but the book that I'm reading, Healing from Abuse. If you're on my Instagram, you've probably seen this on my Instagram stories, but it's called Healing from Hidden Abuse: A Journey Through Stages of Recovery from Psychological Abuse, which is also known as emotional abuse. And what she says in the book, oh, by Shannon Thomas, who is a LCSW, by the way. Um,
Hey, gang,
Hey,
gang.
in the club we all famous. She says, like, that person who was also nice to you is the person who was also abusive to you, and that's a hard pill to swallow at first because you're like, "What?" But I always say this, like, evil not I don't wanna call it evil, but evil people can do nice things. You know what I mean? People can appear to be a certain way all they want to, but I think a person is who they are behind closed doors, and especially the person that they're most intimate with knows them,
Mhm. Right, and I mean
situation or not.
exactly, and a lot of narcissists, for example, they are an example of people who can be emotionally abusive or manipulative. They're charming,
Yeah.
like, it's kind of like a part of the, I guess, getting someone to trust you
Mhm.
piece of it. And for some people, they're actually charming. Maybe they have trauma in their history that affects, like their behavior today. Um, and, they become abusive. But then there are others that, like you were speaking about manipulation earlier, there are others that it's a strategy.
Yeah.
Let me get her to trust me or him or them to trust me by showering them with gifts. Like love bombing, that was one of the, I guess, terms that have come out recently. That's kind of like, it's kind of related to that, I would say. And one thing I was going to bring up earlier too, I don't know if I would call this like, I don't think that this is inherently emotional abuse, but it can be used in an emotionally abusive situation ghosting.
Mm.
So, like, a lot of times, like, that can be a part of a emotionally abusive situation. Like, yeah, that person just ceases communication with you. They just kind of drop off the face of the earth. And maybe the first time it happens, something tragic happens, they're telling you. And okay, I'm understanding. Please don't do that again, yada, yada, yada. But then it keeps happening. And then, you get stuck in this cycle of like wanting them to want you back or, whatever. I just lost my train of thought. Great.
No,
But
I
that's
get
something that's something I personally have dealt with in emotionally abusive situations. Like, just the person kind of like dropping off the face of the earth and then coming back and having like an extravagant story about like what went on. Now, today at almost 33, if you just cut off all contact with me for an extended amount of time, I'm not gonna give you another opportunity to like do that again. Like it probably just will be, we'll just have to end this relationship, whatever it is, because we're in a world where everyone's super connected. If you wanted to reach out, you would have, could have. All it takes is, just a text message explaining, like, hey, I'm not able to talk right now. Can I call you later? Something.
you're in a it's not like you just met this person, like, you've established some form of relationship, right? And then they
Right.
just drop off the face of the earth, no communication, no nothing. It's like, "Excuse me?" And they keep doing it again. That's when you start to recognize the pattern of behavior,
Right.
like to call
Avoidance.
avoidance. And unfortunately, when you're younger, you're just unless somebody like sat down and talked to you about these things, you just don't know. So you're probably thinking in your head, "Oh, I need to reach in and dig more into it. I need to like let them know that I'm here." And that's just not the case. Like you said, if a person wanted to reach out to you, they could, and they just didn't want to. And it's not your job to investigate why.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Another example that my therapist gave me when cause I sent, the whole I sent, like, a whole text thread to my therapist
I
for her
love it.
to read. Something that stood out to me was, like, if you're feeling confused, especially, like, after an argument, that's a sign.
I like that.
If somebody is telling you the truth, but not telling you the truth in a way to be honest and to be open, but in a way to intend to hurt you, that's also a sign
Mhm.
where it's like, what do they say? Like the truth feels like a knife or something like that. There's ways that you could talk to people that if you actually care about them and you actually love them, say what you need to say, but there's also a way to say it without
Right.
trying to hurt them.
Exactly. I guess that goes back to what you were saying earlier, like emotional intelligence. I just do not think that a lot of people have that. Because a lot of people just want to be heard. They just want to get the quick fire whatever off, and I told them about themselves, and that's the energy I feel like that most people are coming with in conflict. So I don't think there's a lot of like thinking about how this is going to land on the person that goes on. And I think that's where a lot of abusive incidents come out of, right? Is when there's conflict going on. I mean, sometimes it comes out of nowhere, but it can happen like in the middle of conflict. So if you've got somebody who's like, trying to cause harm like an abuser would be doing, they're not thinking about how to say something in a tone that the person is going to receive it well in. They're going for all the low blows and cheap shots, and like you said, bringing up things from the past, bringing up embarrassing situations. And we too old to not have a level of an emotional intelligence. Like, how have you moved throughout the world for 30 plus years without ever realizing how you might have said something to someone that didn't land right? Like, I think most people with that emotional intelligence, and not only that, but also self awareness, we know when we're hurting somebody's feelings, right? So,
And like I said, if you need to tell someone the truth, there's a way to do it. Because sometimes, certain things you just need to say it, but there's a difference as to the examples that we're giving.
exactly.
And speaking of like conflict, if you feel like the arguments are like going in loops, yeah, or like the goalpost is like constantly moving, that's a sign too. An example I like to bring up is when people hold you to certain standards that they can't meet themselves. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, when you meet this level of standards, now I'm gonna move the goalpost here. Even though that person can't meet
Hmm.
those standards that they set for you, those imaginary standards that they set for you. It's like a constant moving you'll never win, basically.
Yeah, I see. Wow.
Yeah. You'll never win. You'll try your best. You think that you'll be exhausted trying as well, because 'cause you're like, "Oh, I'm doing everything I possibly can in my power, in my wheelhouse. I'm doing even
Hmm.
extra more than I have to do, and it's still not enough." And it's like, the truth is it was never going to be enough, unfortunately.
Hmm. And I think that gets really dangerous, like in a realm of like parenting. Because I know we've talked about like romantic relationships, but just imagine a parent who's doing that to their child, putting a lot of pressure on them, and what kind of like wounds that creates that
Mhm.
we all carry into adulthood.
Yes, and that's also the next example I wanna bring is, like, you feel like you're going crazy or not communicating clearly, and it's like, truth is you are. Again, it's like, if a person is committed to misunderstanding you, unfortunately, there's nothing that you can do about it. Like, you can say 1 plus 1 equals 2, and they're gonna say, I don't know,
You wrong.
"You're wrong, the sky is green." It's not even something
Right.
to do with whatever you were saying.
Hmm.
And that could be very frustrating and the survivor's fault for sure. Um,
Agreed.
another example, this is diabolical. If they smirk at you when you're crying or hurting slash expressing your feelings, when somebody's like smirking in your face, that's another example. Yeah.
Just
Isn't that sick? I'm like, yikes.
it is like I'm just like you say you love me, so how is this?
How is this
How is
love?
this your reaction? Yeah, and how is this love? Exactly. Wow. That's a really good one to point out, and I just hope, like, this, reaches somebody that maybe was trying to look for, like, validation, for
Yeah,
their situation, because I think that that would be off-putting to anybody, like, "Why is this person smiling while I'm, upset or I'm crying?" But there's something about putting that lens on it, like, this is emotional abuse.
yeah.
Maybe that would be, like, the orange or red flag for someone to leave a situation if they can.
Child, it's a red flag to me now. Absolutely not. No. Another sign, symptom is shut up apologies. I like to call them shut up apologies when somebody's like apologizing, but they're not, you can tell they're not really sorry. They're just saying sorry to like move on from the conversation, not to really acknowledge their part or to acknowledge your feelings.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, I said sorry. And then if you bring it up again, then it's like, I said I was sorry.
I already said I was sorry, right?
It's like, I still didn't like get to the root of the issue.
Right, and the real apology is change behavior.
Okay. Okay.
You ain't did that, then you not really apologizing.
Yeah. Yeah. Another physical sign is if you feel like your body is rejecting that person, whether it's like during sex, you're just not feeling it. Whether it's like if they touch you, you feel a certain way. If it's being in their presence that makes you exhausted. If you're experiencing problems with your gut, you feel like you're
Mhm.
bloating or like you feel like your cortisol levels are up, that is another sign that your body's screaming at you to get out,
Right.
but your mind or and your heart haven't caught up to it yet.
Your nervous system is already, like, letting you know, but you just may not realize that's what's going on until you.
Till you do. I mentioned this earlier, but hiding what you're going through um, from your family and friends is also a sign because I know people feel like they're embarrassed to share what's going on with them. They may feel like, I'm an idiot, this, and that. But I'm telling you right now that you need to find people in your life who you feel emotionally safe with, who you think has a decent level of emotional intelligence and tell them what's going on with you. Tell at least one person because
I
you just
agree. And because there's a lot of, like, stigma and shame around being someone who is, surviving or a survivor of abuse. But when we shed light on situations, there's no space for shame. There's no need to hide because you're not the one at fault. It's the other person's actions, behaviors. It says more about the other person than it does about you. And then, people care. People care about you. You're important and there is support available.
speaking of support, I think we can rodeo until the not rodeo. We can
Yeehaw.
shimmy on to the resources slash solutions because we are solution oriented here. The first step is acknowledgement. It's a simple step, it's a hard step, but it's a simple step. That's the first step. Just to share a little bit more of my personal story. I had a meeting with my therapist. I sent them the New Testament text messages and we went over it. And I asked them, I was like, I kind of don't want to accuse this person of being this way. And I know a lot of people do this to themselves where you're like, oh, I don't want to accuse this person because I don't, you want to be careful and mindful of what you call people and you don't want to just throw shit around. But honestly, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it is a duck. And so yeah, my therapist broke down that I was in an emotionally abusive situation, and that just crushed me because I was just like, "Oh, dang." It's like I knew something was going on, but I just didn't want to admit to it because I just didn't want I don't know, I just didn't want it to be real.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
That makes so much sense.
yeah, it's like, "Ugh, I don't want to do this, but I think this is what it is."
Right.
And so, literally, like, the same week, of course, I texted you and other friends, family, texted them about it, and one person I'm so glad that I talked to was my mother. I usually don't go to my parents for things, but this time, I just got the message to tell my mom. Like, I say, "Spirit told me to just tell my mother," and at first I was gonna text her, but I just was, like, crying a lot, and, when you're frustrated, you're trying to text, I'm like, I need to call her," and that was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, to call my mom and tell her what's going on, because the amount of support and when she told me what to do next was super, super helpful, and I'm just very thankful that I have my number 1, I have my mom in my life, and I have her as a support because I know that's not always the case for some people. Telling you guys, telling my friends, like opening up to everyone and letting them know what was going on. It was scary for me because again it's the shame and you feel embarrassed and all this other crap, but the people who I told were very supportive. They validated how I was feeling, which is very important. You want people to validate your feelings, and even the people who I've opened up to who don't even know the person and they've shared their stories with me, like, "Thank you for sharing your story with me," because I was just, opening up to people, but I found that opening up to people and releasing that shame
Yes.
actually invites more like-minded people into your life, and it also creates a safe space for those other people to open up to you. So, yeah, thanks.
Proud of you, Rhea. And I mean, I'm really glad that you felt like that you knew that your support system had you. And I mean, I don't know. And that's not to shame anyone who may not realize that at the time because it can be hard. Like emotions can cloud a lot of things. Yeah. Like Rhea said, pay attention to how your body reacts to being around certain people. Like, when you're safe. And so if you're in a situation that's unsafe, think about the people that make you feel safe. And those are the people to reach out to. I relate to that a lot. And something that you said earlier too about it was about embarrassment, but also
And shame.
shame, but also like, oh, not wanting it to be real.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I relate to that a lot. 'Cause I'm a survivor of a different type of abuse. Um, and one that comes with a lot of stigma in particular as well. So, it can just be very like that's the lonely part. Not only do I not want this to be real, this can't have happened to me, but also, um, I don't want other people to know like their shame. So, yeah, but I think we've come further, I guess, in the culture. Survivors are speaking out a lot more of all the different types of abuse and people of all different gender expressions as well. Um, 'Cause I know there's also kind of like a misunderstanding that this more so happens to women versus men, things like that, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah. It actually unfortunately, men don't report it as much because there's shame and embarrassment there, to be a man and this and that, and that sucks too. 'Cause it's like, you're you're experiencing emotional abuse from somebody who you trust, who you love, and it's not okay. Period. Whoever you are, no matter the gender identity.
Period.
Period. Other solutions, individual therapy, hello. Use that insurance card or get somebody pro bono. I was gonna say promo, pro bono. Of course, like I said, telling your family and friends that you feel emotionally safe with. Support groups have been very helpful for me. I found support groups on what is that website called?
Psychology Today?
There are groups on there, but the groups that I was part of was called Meetup. Surprisingly, I found groups on Meetup, which
Cool.
I don't really use Meetup, but there's a lot of support groups on there. But also, like Nia said, Psychology Today is also a good resource. Being in nature is helpful, whether you're, like, taking walks or hike or just sitting outside and enjoying the sun and the trees, and wherever you can, whenever you can. Tending to your hobbies. I have
Yes,
1,001
doing things
hobbies.
you enjoy.
Yeah, do things you enjoy. I have 1,001 hobbies, and, it won't stop from here. Of course, showing yourself grace. Know that this situation is gonna take a while for you to move through it, and that's okay.
Right.
As long as you're, like, doing the work, and doing the work, it doesn't have to be, like, something super dramatic, like, even you writing down things in your journal that bother you, that's doing the work.
Mhm.
Acknowledging your own feelings, acknowledging the situation happened.
just about to say that.
Yeah. 'Cause look, I just said earlier I didn't wanna believe it was real. I don't wanna admit to it, but it's like,
Right.
it is what it
Yeah,
is.
I think a lot of folks feel like that
Yeah.
because I echo that as well. Yeah, it's just to normalize it, or
Yeah.
to validate what you're saying rather. Um it's just like a denial. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's important for you to say it to yourself so that your brain gets it, but also your body feels it as well.
Right.
And this is where the tapping helps because as you're, like, acknowledging and talking about your feelings, you're tapping and you feel it in your body, and it may feel like, "What the hell am I doing? Why am I tapping?" But it works. Let's keep up with it. There's
I'm
small
gonna have to
changes.
try that.
Yes, I love me some tapping. Ever since I learned that.
Because I guess that's kinda like a what they call, like, a somatic therapy? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Because you were mentioning before, like, taking walks, doing stuff that moves your body. A lot of people swear by the book, The Body Keeps the Score,
Mm.
talks about some of that and, like, how our physical bodies can hold on to this emotional energy. So, yeah, I need to try and learn the points and things to tap.
Sometimes I would literally do that before, so my therapist calls it grounding before we get into the session.
Mhm.
So grounding myself, that's one of the grounding techniques that I use, like, before our, like, session starts, and I really appreciate that because then it just
That's nice.
maybe do it by myself, yeah. Shout out to the therapist, honey, shout out.
Yes. Shout out to the therapists that aren't afraid to go against the grain and like use mindfulness and other types of
Yeah,
modalities in their practice. Cause that's everything isn't just, clinical and in a book. Well,
yes.
I mean, not that other
Buy the book, I
therapies
know what you
don't
mean.
have. Yes, by the book. There
I
we
know
go.
what you mean.
Bring it
I
on home.
understood, I understood. That's another part of just being gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself, be gentle with yourself, be gentle with yourself. Whatever that looks like. If that means you gotta take a nap, that means you gotta take a nap. If that
It's
means
real.
you gotta make sure you drink enough water in the day, make sure you drink get look, I got this thing right here.
Dre.
Hydrate, okay? And I also wanted to acknowledge a comment because I remember sharing this with someone and they had mentioned, well, we've all been a dumb bitch in relationships before, which I was like, what? I don't think emotional abuse, I don't think you're a dumb bitch for going through that.
Mm-mm.
I think people have this misconception that emotional abuse is like, it's one thing and it happens. Like, no, it's like, it's, what is it called? Death by a thousand cuts or whatever. It's like
Mm,
light cuts, you know what I mean? And it builds up. It builds up, it builds up, it
that's
builds
very
up.
true.
And even though you think that you're immune, even though you might be a person that sticks up for yourself, it does affect you eventually.
Right.
So you're not a dumb bitch for going through this. If anybody's ever said that to you, please disregard them
Please.
because they lack sense.
Hmm.
And yeah, did you have any more resources?
I did want to plug the good folks over at the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number is 800-799-7233. You can also text BEGIN, BEGIN, to 88788 to reach those folks for more support. Think of the other thing. They also have a very good graphic called the Power and Control Wheel that basically shows you, I guess, how power and control in abuse, like kind of like what we were talking about. It will kind of outline the different types of abuse. And some of them, yeah, we mentioned here, like using isolation. It mentions using emotional abuse, using intimidation, using privilege. So that's good. If you just Google and control wheel, that will pop up. And it's from the National DV organization. I think what else?
Put that in the description box.
Yes, that'll be in this description.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, this might be a heavy episode for some people, and that's completely understandable. But just know that you're not alone in this.
Right.
There
And you're
are,
not to blame.
and you're not to blame, and there are people who love you, who support you, and they're gonna be your best They're gonna be like the greatest support system that you have during this time. And just again, be honest with yourself, be honest about the situation, acknowledge it, validate, and see if you can talk to a therapist if you have
Yes.
access and time.
1000%. You're worth it. You're worth it.
But you are enough. That's an affirmation.
We love it.
Well, we will see you guys next episode. But if you would like to leave any comments, like, share, text me, it'd be greatly appreciated. And I look forward to talking about more topics this year with you all. And yeah, just thank you for your support and staying there with me. And thank you, Nia, for joining me today for today's episode. And um, I'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for having me and sharing your story.
Of course. Peace out.